Indentured servitude.
The labor markets of British America were anything but clean. They were murky, makeshift arenas, populated by opportunists, the destitute, and the occasional genius dreamer. Indentured servitude wasn't salvation. It was a rickety lifeboat for the desperate, a band-aid slapped on a land-hungry colonial experiment. Historians love their tidy summary: a fair trade, passage to the New World in exchange for a few years of labor. On paper, it almost sounds noble. The contractual freedom, the social mobility, humanists smile, economists nod, and I'm over here shaking a whiskey in one hand and typing away on my keyboard with the other, trying to square the sales pitch with the suffering. Picture England, 1600s. The streets stink of soot, sewage, and desperation. Across the Atlantic, untamed land crying out for bodies to tame it. Enter the recruiter. Sign here, a free ride across the ocean, just 7 years of labor, maybe less. What could go wrong? To the poverty-stricken masses, it looked like the golden ticket. Get out of London, escape starvation, start fresh. At first glance, I'll admit it, there's a certain beauty to the principle, a contract, a shot at self-made success. But scratch the surface and the ink reeks of economic coercion. Freedom born of desperation isn't liberty, it's survival dressed up for the pamphlet. The journey, less noble pilgrimage, more floating purgatory, rats, disease, rot gut rations. And when you landed, no promised land, just sunup to sundown labor, a back bent under colonial ambition. If you made it through, you might earn freedom dues, land, tools, maybe a chicken and a handshake. If not, you died, got jailed, or found your contract mysteriously extended for catching a cold, getting pregnant, or daring to complain. Women had it worse. Pregnancy? That tacked years onto your sentence. Abuse? Complain and meet the colonial justice system, which was neither just nor particularly concerned. The fine line between liberty and coercion blurred into a thick fog, and modern historians can argue semantics all day, but the lived reality was brutal, especially for women. Yet even in that bleak landscape, there were flickers of light. A handful did rise. Some bought land. Some built a name. Benjamin Franklin, the original bootstrapper, started as an apprentice, indentured in all but title. These stories became the mythos of American self-reliance, proof that grit could triumph even in rigged systems. But let's not kid ourselves. For every Franklin, there were hundreds whose names history never bothered to remember. They sank into the soil, anonymous, exploited, used up. The ladder of opportunity was missing a few rungs, and most never got a foot on it. This wasn't meritocracy, it was roulette. By the late 1600s, the system began to crack. Contracts were messy, people had inconvenient tendencies like dying or suing, so the colonies pivoted, efficiently and horrifically, to African slavery. Why bother negotiating when you can own the labor outright? And just like that, the thin ethical justification, contractual mutuality, collapsed. The shift from indenture to chattel slavery wasn't just economic evolution, it was a moral nosedive. Whatever flicker of dignity existed in indentured servitude was extinguished. The entire labor system became a cold machine, more profitable, less humane. Fast forward to now. Look around. The gig economy hums with eerie echoes, contracts dressed as opportunity, flexibility sold as freedom, power imbalances cloaked in language like partner and independent, Uber drivers, migrant laborers, temporary workers, all still walking that same tightrope between agency and exploitation. The lesson? Consent isn't always enough. A signature means little when desperation's behind the pen. Economic vulnerability warps every transaction, turning contracts into fig leaves and labor markets into moral minefields. Indentured servitude wasn't noble, it wasn't evil. It was a flawed, pragmatic, morally compromised experiment. And like all such systems, it must be remembered, dissected, not romanticized. Because liberty is fragile, because progress isn't linear, because we're still writing contracts that bind more than they liberate.
So, you've managed to endure a slice of the RPTM podcast. We pat ourselves on the back for possibly coaxing a chuckle out of you, but let's be real, we're aiming for the tears here. If, by some twist of fate, you actually found this clip halfway interesting, do us a favor, bestow upon us the mighty power of the thumbs up and grace that subscribe button with your presence.